Welcome to the latest Motley Fool scoreboard. I'm Anan Chakavalu, and we've got longtime fools Carl Thiel and Keith Speights giving a 1 to 10 rating to a company that's had a wild ride since I bought it after its 8.2 rating on a previous scoreboard about a year ago. It's TransMedics, ticker symbol TMDX. Talk about the strength of TransMedics business first, including factors like industry and competition. A 10 is invincible, a 1 is hopeless. Carl's at a 7.5. Keith, you're at an 8.5.
Right. I think TransMedics has a great product with its organ care system. This system keeps donor hearts, lungs, and livers alive during transport. The company has built a successful support system with its national OCS program, has an aviation fleet, it's addressing logistics issues in the organ transplantation market. No other company compares to what TransMedics has been able to do. Now, you mentioned the volatility on a short seller report earlier this year cast some doubts about TransMedics business, and that's putting it lightly. It was some harsh allegations in that report. But so far, TransMedics has continued to rock along and perform well and help put some of those fears raised by the short seller's allegations to rest. So I'm going with an 8.5 because I still believe in this company's business.
Yeah, at this point, TransMedics hasn't reachieved its 52-week high, but it's about where it was before a weak report for the third quarter of 2024 sent the stock lower. That was back in late October. And then that short seller report came along in January and piled on more doubt. They've had 2 strong quarters since then, and I do think that's helped with the worries about the short report. I will also say that they made sort of specific predictions in that report or said things were, cooking along and about to come out that never did, which I think also helps you take other parts of the report a little less seriously. Same time, I can't categorically refute everything that's in a 342-page report, but I think they've shown that they have a sort of a best-in-class device and a logistics network that, as Keith says, makes them different than what anybody else is doing. So I've given them a 7.5.
I'd like to personally thank the short seller because I was able to double down at a much better price thanks to that report. For management, a 10 is Warren Buffett, a 1 is Homer Simpson. Carl's at a 7.5. Keith, you're at a 9.
Yeah, it's too early to put TransMedics CEO Waleed Hassanein at the Buffett level, but I do think he's done a great job leading this company. They do dominate the organ transplant market. The stock has trounced the S&P 500 since its IPO in 2019. And, bottom line, as an investor, that's what I look at. Management, what are you doing for me lately? And even with this setback mainly as a result of the short seller report, this stock is really dominating over the last few years.
Yeah, the founder and CEO is a surgeon and a medical researcher. The company is really kind of his brainchild. It's been around since 1998. Obviously been very successful in claiming what is right now something like 21% market share of U.S. Organ transplants in liver, heart, and lung. I'm still a little nervous about some of the claims about management style in Scorpion, in the Scorpion short seller report. I can't find anything to corroborate that other than that. I mean, they do get pretty lackluster Glassdoor ratings for upper management. So I came in at 7.5.
For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. Carl's at a 7. Keith, you're at an 8.
Right. TransMedics' top and bottom lines are growing robustly. The balance sheet looks solid. On the negative side, the company isn't generating positive free cash flow at this point. Its operating expenses could also increase as they do more work on this next generation lung and heart clinical programs. But I do give TransMedics financials an 8 overall because I think it's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, in addition to what Keith said, I mean, I'll just point out that they have more debt than cash. That doesn't really raise any alarms, but they are still burning cash. And so, they might have to be a little bit careful when they think about any plans they could have for M&A or aggressive international expansion, things along that lines, if they don't want to take on more debt or dilute shareholders. But they do have positive cash flow from operations. They have strong revenue growth, and I gave them a 7.
All right, Carl. Let's move on to valuation. How well will TransMedics stock do over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10 is a sure thing. 1 is a lottery ticket.
So I gave them 5% to 10% appreciation over the next 5 years. They very well may do better than that in the short term. They're still in a strong growth phase. But I have to say, this is the crux of it with this company for me. Their projections, 10,000 transplants and 1.2 billion in revenue by 2028. I find that to be pretty aggressive. They are a little better than a third of that now. So they are really looking at some very, very strong growth that I'm a little bit doubtful about. I think the stock is priced with a fair bit of optimism. And then, even if they get there, I think it gets harder going forward from there. Um, they're talking about entering kidney. I mean, that's a huge opportunity in that there are much more kidney transplants than other organ transplants. But I just want investors to know, kidney transplants typically don't work the same way. Usually the donor is right there where the recipient is. And again, you talk about international expansion. Europe is a smaller transplant market. It is a complicated market. I think doing the same kind of logistics would be tough. And I think, they're not going to get paid as much. So I would view that as like not a doubling of the US market, but maybe a quarter of the US market as a new opportunity. So those kind of things just make me a little less certain about where they go over the very long term. But I do think they're going to do well in the next few years. And I did give them a safety of 7, as I think they're going to be hard to displace.
Yeah, I'm going to go with growth of between 10% to 15%, so a little higher than what Carl is projecting. I will say, Carl hit on a real issue, though. The stock's valuation already has a lot of growth baked into the share price. TransMedics forward earnings multiple, the last time I checked, was a little over 67. Also, revenue growth is slowing somewhat, which is to be expected. They had some really crazy high revenue growth for several years. But I'm still thinking this stock could do double-digit growth, maybe closer to the 10% than the 15%. But as for safety score, I'm going to go with a 7. I feel pretty confident in that.
Time for everyone's favorite topic. Carl, is there a company in TransMedics space that you like better?
So in my effort to cleave to companies I find to have a lot of crossover, I chose a device company that also has an arguably stretched valuation, and I said Dexcom. They have a similar PE ratio right now, although Dexcom it's a much larger company. It's also serving a much larger market. I guess what I like about them is they have a lot of customer love. And although they have more competition, I think they have a little more optionality in where they move forward with the business over the long term.
If we're limiting the discussion to only up-and-coming medtech stocks, I would probably say TransMedics is my favorite, or at least one of my top favorites. But if we broaden the scope to all medtech stocks, I just don't think you're going to find a better pick than Intuitive Surgical. The ticker there is ISRG. Intuitive Surgical is just a monster. It dominates the robotic surgical systems market. Still has a lot of growth potential over the long term, and so it's a stock that if you're looking into the med tech space, I would definitely take a look at it.
Intuitive Surgical might be my longest held stock. Thanks to both Carl and to Keith. They've given TransMedics a strong overall score of 7.4 out of 10. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is something good, I promise. Till then, Fool on. Haters gonna hate.
Especially when they can make money by doing so.